Okay, so thank you everyone for joining me again this Sunday, and happy equinox. We really are in the midst of the equinox energies, which is creating some interesting, or has been creating some interesting energies for this week. I know personally, and I know from a lot of the people that I've been working with this week, that it's been an intense time with lots of old emotions coming up, lots of old thought programs and patternings coming up to be cleared and released. And I think looking at the energies for the coming week, there seems to be a little bit more of this continuing. So we're not past it yet. We're still in it, and the best we can do is to remember that these things are coming up for release, and not to go into or get sucked into the drama of this old stuff, as it isn't relevant to the person that you are right now. They really are things that have come up from the past. And for many, it's also been childhood stuff, which isn't relevant for now. And I don't think it's a time where we need to analyze and go too deeply into what these feelings are, or where they stem from, or why they're coming up. They're coming up because they're needing to be released. And the equinox is always an incredibly powerful time. The solstice and the equinox, I think, are those key points in the year that offer us they offer a turning point. And so as we move towards that turning point, and as we step into it, there is an intensity to the energies that brings about a lot of healing, clearing, and releasing. So we have this time and the opportunity, and the best we can do is manage ourselves through it, and to do the things that we know that keep us balanced, that keep us stable, and that keep us moving forward. If I looking into the energies for this week, the focus is on our hearts and how we are opening and moving into a more heart-based space for ourselves. We really are at a point where we need to let go of the past, and whatever residual strings or connections that we have to the past, now is the time to really let them go. It's also an interesting time where the alignment with our soul is key. And as we know, as we move through these transitional times, it is key that we connect and align with our soul in a way that offers us an opportunity to find the solutions, to find the opportunities, and to find the potential for what it is that we are stepping forward and into, and how we are manifesting the new earth and a new reality. One of the things that came up quite strongly in what I was reading into the energies today was the judgment and criticism that we have around ourselves and everyone else. And what I was told is that judgment and criticism are the two things that limit our creativity, and block us from being able to establish a strong soul connection. So it is important, as we move forward, that we look at where are we judging ourselves, where are we criticizing ourselves, where are we judging others, and where are we criticizing others. And I think, these times are incredibly challenging for many, many, many of us. And if we can move into a space of compassion rather than of judgment, and to step back from what is being triggered in us by the behaviors or the responses or the reactions of the people around us, if we can step back into a space of compassion, and to begin to observe those people through those eyes of compassion, then we are less likely to step into a space of judgment and criticism. And we can start to see that the wounding within them is what triggers them to behave in the way that they are behaving. And it doesn't mean that we shouldn't have boundaries, and it doesn't mean that we should just accept abuse if that is what is coming at us. But instead of taking it all so personally, what we can do is step away or step to the side of it, and allow ourselves to hold that person in a space of compassion, which can be challenging, because we're all human and we all have these feelings, and we all have been hurt, and we all have wounds. And so when someone behaves in a particular way that triggers our wounding and triggers our pain, it can be difficult to step back from what it is that we're feeling in order to hold that person in a space of compassion. But it is key as we move forward. We don't want to recreate the same reality that we're trying to leave behind. We're wanting to create a reality that holds a space of compassion, that holds a space of understanding and deep understanding, rather than that space of criticism and judgment. And it is also key for ourselves, because many of you, and even for myself this week, feeling the emotions, the old emotions as they come up, going through the old thought patterns or the old programming that we hold on to, we can actually fall into that space of judgment and criticism, where we think we should be doing better, we should know better, we shouldn't be doing these things, and why am I slipping back into old patterns, and why am I reacting and responding like this? And those questions of why often are, why for me is a never-ending question, because there's always another why. But what we can stop and ask ourselves is, what can I do in this moment? What can I do to help myself? What can I do to support myself? Rather than going into the question of, why is this happening to me? Why am I doing this? Why am I behaving this way? Why am I self-sabotaging myself? Why am I allowing these old things to surface again? And when we step into that space of what can we do to support ourselves and what can we do to help ourselves, then we become action orientated, and we don't become victims of our circumstances or victims of our past. We can start to focus on the self-care and the self-love that is required, rather than the self-flagellation that happens. And it has been a week of that. I mean, I certainly have felt this week that the energies at some point, I've even felt physically unstable on my feet, and have struggled to find my balance in a very physical way, never mind in an emotional way. Thankfully, there was no more fighting with my younger child, and we've made up, and we've had a lovely long discussion about why we had this argument, and we're both understanding each other. And so I'm very relieved about that, because it's a lot more peaceful in my home. But it has been an incredibly unstable week for many of us. And even for myself, I know the practices that I should be engaging in. I know the things that I should be doing to help myself. And I found it incredibly hard to do those things this week. I know when I'm feeling that way, I need to find the balance within myself. I need to meditate. I need to do yoga, to do my yoga practice. And I managed to eventually start meditating on Thursday, and I still haven't done any yoga. So we're halfway there, and I plan to do some yoga this evening. But it's been tough. I don't know how any of you have been managing. Anyone want to share their experiences of this week and how they've been dealing with it all?
Hi, Kate. Hi, everyone. I found similarly that I was so caught in it, actually, that I couldn't really do anything that wasn't work orientated. And I was really feeling the death and dying of the astrological year, but also within myself and my history, I was feeling death and dying. And it was really crazy. And I found that the only thing that I could do was walk, go outside and walk. And that's not normally my first go-to. I'm a very fair weather walker, except on a Sunday. But that seemed to me the only time when I could stop the spirals, when I was out. And then Thursday night, I had this major past life release. So the death, which was all about being killed and death and dying. And so the theme of the week of what I was feeling kind of made a bit more sense, that I was going down to clear that, to come up. I think if I hadn't have been ready to clear that life, it wouldn't have been so. But that ties in with what you're saying, is that, you know, we're delving deep. And those of us who have got some consciousness to see what we're delving into, to surface up, you know, we feel it, we think it's current, and that's the trap. We think it's current, and, you know, or it's so real that you forget to step out of it. I think that's the danger. Anyway, once I did the big healing, God, you know, it's a completely different life. And I've noticed that my clients are doing the same thing. And that balance thing that you did, it's like stuff would come in and it would literally rock my head. And my eyes would do that, and then I'd be all right. So it's very, very big. And, you know, we started the new astrological year yesterday. So the old life was dying off this week. So I think that's the other reason why it was so heavy. That's what I experienced.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing that. Interestingly enough, a friend of mine sent me some information this last week. Apparently on the 16th of March every year is the anniversary of the death of the Cathars. So any one of us that were in a Cathar in a past life would be experiencing every March, would experience the memory of that very difficult and challenging time, which I thought was interesting. So, you know, a lot of past life stuff coming up.
Kate, mine was fairly reasonable, but in line with what you were saying, that old things were coming up. And I took out the big stick to say, but you're supposed to be over this. And then I just moved into observer mode and let it go. Just observe as it was coming up, instead of trying to beat myself up about stuff I should have let go. So yeah, that was more or less calm. Not as exciting as yours, Elizabeth Rose. Very calm.
Yeah, I must say a lot of my dreams this week were, you know, at one point in the week, there was a lot of, I felt like I was in a war and having to fight for my life and fight for survival. And I did feel like that was past life stuff coming up as well. And then when a friend of mine sent me that information on the Cathars, I thought, oh, okay, those are just memories, big memories coming up. And then Leonie's also just saying, just blown off my feet, immersed myself in a bath every day and flowing ancient feelings of being unwanted when my mother was pregnant with me. Bloody hell. I agree. And Faith has also said, I've never had trouble sleeping, but it's been a very restless, very restless most of this week. You know, I think this week has been challenging on that level as well. I did find. Hi, Lynn.
Hi. I had two things come up this week. One with my mum, which has been quite a challenge. I told her that I would not be having the vaccine, and her answer to that was, "I'm very sad about that." So that's kind of my old patterns, is that she's saying, you're the cause of my emotions. And I really wanted to say to her, well, I can't create your emotions for you, but I just have to let it go. Like you say, just let her be in her space. And that was quite challenging. And then also food patterns. And I realized that I was actually sabotaging myself to eat low vibration foods to be like everybody else. not to stand out from the crowd. So it's kind of quite a realization that if I'm feeling quite good, then I'll suddenly start to eat not really bad foods, but very low price, like sugary foods. So that was really quite a revelation. So now I've got to take action, like you say. What am I going to do when I'm feeling good to keep my vibration like that and not hide away behind my curves?
I think it's fascinating that we do that to ourselves, you know, that we sabotage those moments when we are feeling balanced. It's almost like there's something in us that says, oh, this is wrong, this doesn't feel right, and so we go and do something that'll undo the balance. You know, I find it fascinating. I do it myself, Lynn. I know, you know, suddenly start craving chocolate, and chocolate's my go-to.
Hi. It's my first time here. It's nice to meet everybody. But yeah, I think, you know, Lynn was sort of echoing what I would like to share, that you know, the issue I often find in these spaces and places is also a type of self-sabotage. And I think I notice in myself that often my fear of it being taken away from me is out of my control. Whereas if I self-sabotage, it's in my control, right? Like I'm sort of like then not waiting for the foot to fall, so to speak. I'm dropping it myself. And I know that's a weird sense of control, you know, but I do find that I extend that. And I think, you know, this week what I noticed mostly is that, you know, these bad habits that I used to use for self-soothing, right? Whether it was eating badly or, you know, staying up late and watching lots of television, you know, these old methods that I used to use aren't working anymore. You know, I feel them very much in my body, that they're not doing the job that they used to do. I mean, they were never good at it in the first place, right? But now more than ever, I find that they are not working. And I think, like Kate was saying, you know, realizing that meditation and yoga, like these just have so much more depth to them as resources of self-soothing. And I'm noticing that I'm having to quite actively replace old self-soothing, maybe badder habits or habits that maybe don't serve me as well, with these newer, fresher, sometimes, you know, things that I've hardly tried in my life that I'm trying for the first time. And again, that's odd, right? Because my first impulse will always be will always be to go to the old patterns. So it's this active sort of work of like, I feel like I'm talking to like my child self, like, don't worry, come here, try this thing. Like as if I'm giving myself toys or something to play with and being like, try this, try journaling, try these things that maybe you haven't found as resources in the past. So I'm very grateful to be here. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for sharing that. I hadn't quite seen it as, you know, that control thing. That resonates with me too. You know, I think also that, you know, there's a programming of you know, don't be too happy, don't let life be too good, because, you know, that shoe is going to drop. So I'll make it drop first.
Just Kate, to add to that, Matthew, you've actually reminded me the most basic thing of where, you know, my go-to when I feel rubbish is, you know, chocolate ice cream. I did actually walk out at 9 o'clock the other night to go and buy 3 tubs of ice cream, which were disgusting. And I ate half a tub before I actually stopped myself doing it, just because I really thought that was going to be my reward for doing it. I bought bread and butter pudding, I bought cream, custard, everything. It sat in my fridge looking at me and I'm thinking, I really don't want it. But I went to do it because it was my old go-to pattern. You're absolutely right. And also then to come back and probably sit in front of the television with that tub of ice cream and watch films that are so bad, you don't know why you're doing it. And I must admit, I haven't really even cottoned on to that being a pattern. So you've reminded me, Matthew, thank you, that it's a pattern that is no longer serving me. But I know I should go and do half an hour yoga instead, but having the motivation to do that, I'm not quite there. I'm still fighting with the ice cream tub, but it's a really good reminder that that's what I've done for years. And when I used to drink, I'd sit down, you know, with a bottle of wine in front of a movie. But now it's ice cream. And I've got to change. That's something that just has to, I keep thinking if I stop and I do that, then I'll have the brainwave later or the energy later to do it. But I haven't actually cottoned on to the fact that it's not working. You know, you sit and you blob and then you just feel even worse afterwards. But it's getting over that hump of doing the thing that is then good for you. I still haven't quite got there. I'm beginning to realize that's really bad to do or not good for me. But I can't quite get into the do something good for myself. So
maybe it's also got something to do with, you know, as I said earlier, the judgment and the criticism isn't helpful, and it is what kind of contracts us and limits us. And, you know, if we look at the brain and how the brain is wired, you know, there are neural pathways that the brain follows because those are the pathways that have been developed. And so perhaps it's on a neural pathway that we kind of get pushed into that pathway because that's what we know, that's what we do, that is the pattern, that's what we've always done. And now it's about creating new neural pathways into healthier habits and healthier practices. So we almost have to, in that moment, be conscious, I'm wanting to go for the chocolate, or I'm wanting to go for the wine, or I'm wanting to go for the cake, or whatever it is that is our usual go-to place. And to actually pull back in that moment and say, no, I'm creating a different pathway. And so what can I do to replace that unhealthy habit with something that is healthier? I mean, I know, I smoked cigarettes for years, and it was always there were many reasons why I did it. A lot of it had to do with creating a smoke screen around me so no one could see me. You know, and then of course there was the needing to leave my body, so it was a good space for that. And I remember stopping. There were many tactics that I used, and one of them would be crocheting or knitting. So at least I gave my hands something to do, and so I wasn't needing to hold a cigarette. I could hold my knitting needles or my crochet stick. And then that worked for a few years, and then I started again, and I realized I had to do something else. And I actually then started turning to exercise, and I don't mean exercise as in going to the gym. I'm not really that kind of, I don't know, that exercise doesn't feel right. So I would go for a walk. If I felt that craving, I would go for a walk. If I felt that craving, I'd do some yoga. You know, so I really actively started pursuing healthier things when I felt triggered enough to want to have a cigarette. And in that way started to open up a space where I was doing healthier things. So I know we're talking about bad habits, but if we could even take away that word and look at these things as these have been our coping mechanisms. They're not habits, they're coping mechanisms, and we need to begin to create healthier coping mechanisms and ones that are more supportive rather than ones that are more damaging.
Funnily enough, though, Kate, I think the walk to get the ice cream did me more good than the ice cream. It was one of those things where nothing else would get me out of the house and off the sofa, but the desire for ice cream actually got me off my backside. So there's some good in there.
Well, there you go. You went for a walk. I like that. Faith has just written, part of it for me is not knowing what to do with this new 11 of vibration or energy. Yeah, I think there's also, and so I fall back into old habits. Leonie's also saying, I don't know what to do with all this new light energy. I think it's the energy. it's almost like the energy needs to start really building in us before we can take action on what it is that we're needing or wanting to take action on. And I think it could be a challenging place, because one of the things I wrote about the energies for this week is that, you know, we are standing at a crossroads, and we are we're looking to see, you know, what are the opportunities, what are the possibilities, where am I going to go, how am I going to do this? And sometimes the answers aren't there yet. And so we're sitting with all this new energy building in us, building around us, and, you know, we internalize it. So rather than using it to help us step forward or to move forward, we're internalizing it. And sometimes in that internalizing process, it becomes something that is a little destructive. And I think before we can harness the energy and moving forward, we're still in this process of releasing and letting go, which can be incredibly frustrating, because we want to be 10 steps ahead, but we're still here, and we're still processing, and we're still letting go, and we're still integrating, and we're still healing. And I think that there's a lot of us are expecting that to end, and when it ends, then we can take action, then we can step forward. And sadly, I don't think it is ever going to end. I think it is, yes, the intensity of it will lessen, and the triggers will lessen, and we'll let go of the programming, and we'll let go of the patterning, but it's going to take time, and we have our whole lives to follow a healing journey, and a healing of and a process of growth and evolution. So it's not going to stop. So at some point, we also need to make that decision of, I need to step forward, and I need to take action. And I do notice that there are some people who are delaying that stepping forward, and they're delaying their own growth because they've many excuses that we can come up with as to why we shouldn't do something right now. One of the greatest one is we think it's not that the time isn't right. But often when we're making those decisions about the timing being right, we're making it from an unbalanced place, not a balanced space. When we are feeling balanced within ourselves, then we can actually make those decisions, and we're not making them from that space of crisis. And sometimes I think many people have lived for so long in crisis, they don't even know what it feels like not to be in crisis.
Hey, Kate, the word that kept coming up for me this week has been resistance. So I was busy last week, really accomplishing things, being creative, feeling like, wow, I've got this. And then, but my knee was starting to bother me. I had some surgery on a knee. But I kind of, okay, it's there, but ignoring it. Well, by Friday, it was pretty stiff, and I know knees are about moving forwards. Okay, all right, what am I not looking at, guys? So I ended up doing a lot of inner child work yesterday, and very clear that I've been in resistance to kind of resolving a past life wound that's affecting, with that same soul, some dynamics in this life. And, something I've been working on, haven't been ignoring it, but I think the word that really came up was resistance. What are we resisting? And I feel like we're really being called to release anything that we're resisting. So if we're struggling, if we're bumping into walls, if this thing that we thought we had dealt with keeps coming back, it's that we're resisting something. We're resisting recognition of something about it that we don't want to look at. And it's funny, you're talking about the chocolate is mine as well. These things that we do distract us from facing it, from that resistance. We're in resistance, so we distract ourselves because we don't really want to deal with it. It's too hard, it's too this, it's too that. but anyway, I think, I think that's a big one. And I keep hearing about how much light opportunity we have to take into ourselves right now, yesterday, today, tomorrow. And that we just have to really sit back if we want to maximize that and just look at, okay, where am I in resistance where I'm just not allowing that to benefit me so that I can move forward. So anyway, that's what I've been doing this week.
Well done for seeing it and noticing it and listening. It can be incredibly hard to hear that you're in resistance. I mean, I had coffee with a friend of mine this week, and I've got this biofeedback thing that I'm busy working with, and I'm using myself and some others as guinea pigs, and and it gives a percentage of how much you are cleared, and everyone else seems to be 70s and 80% cleared, and I'm 54. And I'm like, really? Why can't I let stuff go? Why? I mean, I'm really wanting to let this stuff go. What's going on? And I mentioned it to him, and he laughed and he said, oh, you're just getting sloppy. And I was like, I heard the word and I laughed when he said it. And then I sat with it and I thought, I'm getting sloppy. Where am I getting sloppy? Where am I not doing things like I would normally do? I mean, I used to be a perfectionist, and I thank God got rid of that one. But I like to do things. I like things. I'm not a sloppy person. So I was quite taken aback, and I had to sit for this week and look and say, okay, where am I being sloppy? Where am I being sloppy in my practices? The meditation was one of them. I'm not practicing meditation enough, and I need to do it more regularly. And I get busy, and then I forget to look after myself. And then I hit a wall, and I can't understand why I've hit the wall. So it's also these kind of things that we're needing to look at, because we're supposed to be moving into a space in ourselves and in our lives that is filled with far more grace and ease, not this old habit of doing and getting out there and being proactive, and all these things that we're told in the Western world, what we how we should operate. We're supposed to be moving at a slower pace with a lot more ease, a lot more grace, and as a result of that, a lot more being rather than doing. And I certainly have been doing a lot more of the doing bit and a lot less of the being bit, and as a result of getting sloppy, which was quite insulting. And Leonie's mentioned she's had ringing for months in her ears, and it's very disconcerting. Yeah. Carolyn said she was told to step forward in her journaling this morning. Good. Elizabeth Rose written, sometimes I think we can only do so much at one time. We need to build the strength in between revisits, so that when it comes around again for extra delving, we've got the strength to deal and face it. I agree. I do agree.
Kate, I would also offer something that came to me last couple of months, where we can't really set the intention to surrender it. And actually, that will get your scores up.
I can surrender. I can do that. Oh, yeah. Definitely.
It's really worked for me, because I'm a I've been chanting, I surrender and release, I surrender and release.
Yes, I can do that.
And the other thing is, I think that, and this definitely is something that I experience and that I observe as well in clients, if there isn't enough safety around the ritual of release, or around the idea of it, the intention of it, it won't go.
Mm.
So safety is really, I think, a pivotal thing. But
No, you've muted yourself. Finish that last sentence.
but that's where if it's borderline safety issue but resistance issue, like we all get, the surrender intention will get around that.
Yeah.
And so now I'm using that all day, every day, everywhere. Surrender and release, seen and unseen.
Oh, yes, I love that.
Yes, love that. And adding to that, what helps me is someone was talking about observing. It's just observe it. Oh, I'm doing that. What's that all about? And then you can kind of just allow yourself to feel it. So I think the surrender work brings another level to that. I like that. And just also too, when we talk about judgment, criticism, resistance, all these things, and Kate, you said this, underneath it is a fear. So when we observe that we're having one of those dynamics, then it just helps to just not judge it, allow yourself to think about it, feel about it, but also look at to see if there's a fear underneath it. That helps me a lot. It's just what am I afraid of? But I think there's so much fear. I know so many people I encounter, they're just riddled with fear. And so you do kind of absorb some of it. You're like, whoa, you don't even consciously know that you're absorbing it. But, so much of underneath all of this is our fear of what's next. What's this really going to look like? If I surrender to this, what is it really going to be? And then we just have to trust it and know that it's going to be good for us. So anyway, that's my extra 2 cents.
Thank you. Thanks, Lorraine. I think
a really simple question that might seem really obvious to others. I don't really know what safe feels like. That's probably a really awful thing to say, but I don't think I'm fearful either. So I don't know, but it really rings true about this whole thing of surrendering and releasing, which you've said, Elizabeth, is true. I think there's a lot I don't quite get past, and I am stuck in where I am. But I don't think I've ever felt safe in my life. But that hasn't stopped me from not doing things. But because how do you feel safe? Is that a sense of feeling so loved you feel protected, or is that just brave enough to just try anything, which I sort of think I am, but I don't know. I just definition of safety, I think, is where I'm at. What makes you feel safe?
Well, I think that is a question that each one of us can answer individually, because what makes us feel safe as individuals is often different and unique. But Fiona, we've worked together on one-on-one sessions, and you feel a level of safety in our in our sessions that enables you to have the releases. So that is a space of safety. It is. I think safety is in this regard is a space where you feel held. Where you don't feel like you're having to do it on your own. And I think that is another thing that is so essential, is that we have been conditioned to think we're alone and we're doing this on our own. And we're not. We don't have to. We have a community here of people that we can feel supported by, that we can feel held by. I certainly felt that so beautifully last year, with my brother dying. I mean, I really, really felt, and I can honestly tell you, I'd never ever felt that before in my entire life. I'd never felt held like that, never. And it was life-changing for me. And I realized then the importance of the space that we're creating, the importance of community, the importance of being in a space with like-minded people. So, in this regard, we come together and we share what is happening for us as individuals, but we're all resonating with that because we're all sort of in the same space. It's different, obviously, but it's all fundamentally the same. And I think that these times, particularly, Lorraine talking about the fear, I mean, there's an incredible amount of fear that is surging through the collective on a minute to minute basis. It just is not stopping. And on an intellectual level, we can understand where that fear comes from. We can understand why it exists. But yet we are still having to navigate our way through it without taking it on, without absorbing it, and being able to protect ourselves from being triggered by that fear is also important. And some of us, and not even some of us, I think every single person needs support and help at times when it becomes too much, when it becomes overwhelming, where I feel like I can't find my way through this on my own, and I need to reach out to people that I know that can help me. You know, I go to the people that I know that I can have a clearing with, who will do that for me, because I can't do that for myself. I can't even do it on my own biofeedback app. So, you know, and we all need people we can go to, and I think it's essential that we reach out to those people. And thankfully, there are many. I mean, there are many of healers and therapists in this forum that are available. And if you, I mean, it's something I've actually been thinking about for a while. If any of you want to share your details with the group, and maybe your website or what it is that you do, send that on to me as an email, and I'll put together some sort of database or something. And you know, anyone who's part of our community and the wider group can perhaps get in touch and get some help if that's what they feel they're needing.
Kate, building on that, you had passed along and put me in touch with a few people when my back went out. And first of all, my back's all better. Thank you, everybody. And that was just, I too felt very cared for, just even when we talked in this group that people were concerned, and that helps, you know, it builds you up. And Fiona, if it makes you feel better, all right, I only got 2 tubs of ice cream, but I threw in a piece of blueberry pie. So, and I like chocolate, so my ice cream has to involve chocolate, either chocolate ice cream or white ice cream with chocolate sauce. But the other thing was, Carolyn, I think, put in the chat a few minutes ago about the synchronicity of this group. And I swear, 5 minutes before I logged on, I was doing a writing exercise for another thing I'm doing this weekend. And what I wrote down about what I want to, you know, like my immediate goals is to look at food and the way that I use food as comfort, to try to get myself to eat healthier, and to move more, because it's really been a long winter here and I've barely been out of the house. And I think that probably contributed to my back going out. And so it always amazes me that then, I mean, literally, I'm not kidding, 5 minutes ago, or 5 minutes before we logged on, that's what I wrote down. Okay, and the usual clean the house and declutter that we always talk about, and I still have done a little bit this week for what it's worth. My kitchen table that you can't see on the other side of this, it was stacked with papers and magazines, all the mail you throw on that you don't have to address immediately. And I actually went through it all this week while I was sitting here working. I'm like tearing up and recycling and whatever. So that was good. And the last thing is, I got to see my cousin this week. They needed a notary public, and I'm a notary, to straighten out some paperwork. And I went to the nursing home. And I thought I was prepared, but I don't even think she knew who I was. I mean, she just stared vacantly at me. And I was there for like 45 minutes because there was problems with the healthcare proxy, and I was trying to get it all straightened out. So at least I felt like I got to do something for her. But she just was curled up kind of in her wheelchair. And I think in the 45 minutes, she either fell asleep or just closed her eyes because it was too much. And there was only, of course, they make you sit at the end of a big table, so you can't get anywhere near her and you can't touch her. And I think that was harder. And of course, we had to keep masks on. So, but I came away so disheartened that this vibrant, beautiful woman, was reduced to this, and they're still making great efforts to try to keep her here. And I just don't, seeing her, I don't see this could ever reverse. I mean, I'm big on miracles, don't get me wrong, but I think we're well beyond a miracle at this point. And so that was just very, very sad. And that started my week. So it energetically, I felt what you said. It was just a very heavy week, all week long by the time I got to Friday. Plus I work at a college, and we did online registration this week. And the students, there's a limited number, we're basically a nursing and healthcare college, and there's a limited number of seats in the professional classes because of a lot of reasons, but clinical being the biggest thing. And right now in the States, it's very hard to get the students in to get clinicals. And so it was so many crying students and so many, so much, whatever. So that probably didn't help the week. But anyway, so that was, but I always look forward to this group. And like I said, I thought it's always amazes me that whatever it is I'm thinking about is what ends up coming up in the group. But I think in the end, you started by talking about criticizing ourselves. And I just beat the hell out of myself. And I about the food, about that. I mean, it's not like I could do a whole lot about what is going on here. We've been in lockdown. That was the other thing. It was a year on St. Patrick's Day that they sent us home for a few weeks at the college, So anyway, but I'm glad to see everybody's faces today. And, I still have some of the ice cream in the freezer. I'd like to say I'm going to throw it out, but I'm not gonna.
That would be a waste, Nancy.
See, that's what I feel. And who throws Haagen-Dazs out anyway at $6 a pint or whatever it is?
You can't do that. I'm relieved that your back is better, because that pain is debilitating and draining on so many levels. So, and I'm really sorry to hear about your cousin and how bad she is. I think it's in those moments you just wish that there was a key that you could slot and open the door and help them on their way. So I will be sending prayers her way, and yours. And then Caroline's just given us some good info. Responding emotionally around food, the flower essence agrimony will offer help and support. Definitely going to get myself some of that. I think I might even have some actually. And beach helps with judgment and criticism. So thank you for that. Those are very helpful. Yes, Liz, hi.
Hi, hello everybody. Nancy, I think we're all absolutely heartbroken for you, I think collectively. But if I can put the comfort in to tell you that I actually had a conversation with my darling sister Alice this week. So that is proof of the collective of our group. She has come together. She's still 96. She's still confused, but she was actually, God knows if she knew who I was, but one of the sisters went from here and she phoned to say, talk to her. And she actually was able to answer me and hear me. And she is so peaceful that everybody is just more peaceful again. She's alive and it's okay. It's amazing. So thank you, everybody, because that is only the collective of us that's done that.
Oh, thank you, Liz. I'm so relieved here.
Yeah, she's good, so it's okay.
She's not done yet.
No, obviously not, but she's peaceful, so it just doesn't matter. It's
Mm.
okay for her to stay, eh?
Mm. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for letting us know and keeping us updated.
Mm.
Yeah, so just getting back to the notes I made for the week for coming up and what we're heading into, and the key to this, to navigating the energy this week, I was told, lies in focused spiritual practice. And the focus must be on that which brings us balance or brings us into balance. So whatever that is for you, obviously it's going to be a healthier version than chocolate and ice cream. But so focused spiritual practice is key. And I think it was Faith who responded earlier. I'm just trying to find. And you wrote here, Faith, I think it's difficult to have direction when we don't know exactly where we are. And I agree. I think it can be incredibly challenging trying to navigate through the chaos that we're in as a world. We don't know from one minute to next if we're going to be able to go out or not. Lockdown happens and things open up and then they're closing down. And so it can be difficult from that perspective to know what's going on. But I think that what is key at the moment is if we can acknowledge that we are standing at a crossroads right now. And the equinox is offering us this opportunity and this turning point at this crossroads. And if we can stop and take a moment and to assess within ourselves, not externally. This is not about what's happening in the external world. This is about what's happening inside of us. The crossroads exists inside of us. It is not a crossroads we are seeing externally. So if we can turn within and we can look within to see that the crossroads that we stand at, and to be able to look within us to see what are the new potentials and the possibilities that are arising within us, not in the external world, because the world, it's chaos and it's in crisis. So we can't find direction externally. We have to find that internally. And the other aspect of that, which is then a little bit more challenging, is to be able to say, okay, this is the direction that is coming up for me. This is what I'm being guided to do. This is what my soul is telling me. And then how do I do this in the world? How do I step forward? Where do I go? But actually what it is that if we can get clarity within ourselves, we can also get clarity on what are the steps that I need to take. What is the action that I need to take? And at the moment, they're going to be small steps. We're not leaping ahead at the moment. We're taking small steps because we're having to move into an environment that we don't know yet. But then again, that environment is in us. It's not an external environment. So we need to remember this is a very internal process that we're in. It's not an external thing. Some people are thinking that they need to make these dramatic changes in their lives and end relationships and quit jobs. And now's not necessarily the time to be making those decisions, because it's not that they will be the wrong decision or the wrong choice, but right now we're needing to find the balance so that we can make the choices and decisions, those choices and decisions from that balanced place, rather than from an imbalance which is being created by the emotional stuff that's coming up, the cellular memories that are coming up for clearing and release. And at the same time as turning within, we need to consider carefully what are the steps that we're taking. This is not a time where we are rushing forward with everything that we're wanting to bring into the world, or whatever it is that we're wanting to create. It's small steps rather than trying to rush. And I get it. I mean, there are moments where I have incredible frustration around, there are things I want to do and I can't do them. And I'm having to say, well, you know, I really sat with that frustration this week, and I said, you really felt into it. And I thought, well, there is obviously a reason that we are in the spaces that we are in. We are obviously, there is a greater purpose for the lockdowns and for everything shutting down and for this virus. There is obviously a greater reason, and we need to remember that and respect it. We don't know. Our small human minds cannot actually conceive of the plan that is unfolding. What we can trust in is that it is a good plan, and that the outcome for all of us is a good outcome. Rather than allowing ourselves to get sucked into the fear or the frustration or the irritation. Nina's just written, I feel the uncertainty around us is teaching us to trust and live in the present moment. I agree 100% with that one.
You know, as far as living in the moment, my friend David, who I told you had to have the emergency back surgery, and he's doing much better. He's in rehab, but he was going out to, but what if, and what I think that is a profound thought, that everything that's gone on in this last year brings me back to the moment. And so what I kept saying to him as he was, and I won't be able to do this, and I'm like, David, if you're more than 1 minute out in the future right now, you're too far, you're looking too far out. Just literally, when you don't know how you're going to walk from here to the bathroom, bring your focus back into the moment. And I find myself telling myself that so often right now, because if you start to go out, you know, listen, people go, oh, it's never going to be the same, and we're never going to blah, 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 and never going to. And I'm like, on the 16th of March, I didn't know I was leaving my office and wouldn't step back in it. And a year later, I mean, I just keep thinking, I hope I knew enough to not leave milk in the refrigerator at the office, you know, because I really I didn't expect to be out, I didn't expect to be out this long. And now I think I told you they're using it as storage, so I can't get in there anyway. And I just go, we really don't know. I mean, life changes on a dime. You know, my cousin was mowing her lawn and had that stroke. You know, I mean, she was fine, and then she wasn't fine. And I think that if we can all just stop, you know, it looking at what Elizabeth Rose had said earlier, that it's surrender and release, and it's somebody else had just put in there, it's acceptance that we're powerless over a lot of what's going on in the world today. And when I pull it back into the moment, it doesn't seem as scary, and it doesn't seem as overwhelming, and because you just go, well, really, what do I have to figure out? You know, like, I don't need to figure out what's going to happen a month from now, or if I'm going to make it to my niece's wedding in September. You know, who the heck knows? But when I pull it back and go, I really only have to worry about, like, can I sit up straight in this chair? You know, then it all seems more manageable.
Well, I get into the habit of always saying I'll do something when something else has happened. So it's a bit like I'll look after myself. I'll do my yoga in the morning when the rush of work's got over. And there's always a reason that I can put off the next thing until one thing happens. And then when that one thing happens, something else inevitably happens. And I never get round to the bit of the stuff I should be doing. So I would love to do more of, I don't know, finding a reason to do something now rather than, it's that sort of the grass is always greener thing, isn't it? That next week. And it's very easy to put it off, put it off, put it off. I'm gonna really try this surrender release thing and hope it works for me, Elizabeth, because I've always got an excuse for something not happening until something else happens, which is not good. It's frustrating for myself, apart from anything else.
Yeah, and I think then we start the cycle of judgment and self-judgment and criticism, which is just actually makes us want to rebel against ourselves. Lorraine's just written, we are allowing ourselves to flow with how we evolve, whether slowly or more quickly, at whatever pace we can, trusting where this is taking us and that we are creating something good for ourselves, something we can't see yet, but it is the way our soul intends us to be. That's beautiful. Thank you. And I think being present in the moment is something that is a really challenging concept even, because unless you've been forced to be present, you often don't know what that feels like. And Nancy, I'm sure you know, but anyone who's been in chronic pain knows how to be in the present moment, because you cannot focus on anything else. You are right there. And so it's a practice, and it takes practice. And I think, you know, perhaps we're saying that the focus this week needs to navigate the energies we need to be focused on some form of spiritual practice. And maybe the practice can be the things that bring us into balance, but also what brings us into the moment. You know, we're so conditioned to think about the future. We're so conditioned to think about where we're going, how we're going to do it, how it's going to happen, when it's going to happen, rather than just being here now. Because in this moment, everything is wonderful. I take myself out of this moment and I'm like, oh, you know, we might have another lockdown, and oh, the vaccine and the virus and the this and that. And so you get sucked up into the chaos that is happening in the outside world. You bring yourself here now. It's all wonderful. I think I've shared this technique that I discovered many years ago, seeing I spent about 30 years outside of my own body. And it's this exercise of rubbing your fingertips. It really brings you straight back into your body and into the moment. So instead of being in I learned to do this because I'd get in my car and be driving somewhere and completely drift off into some other world, and I'd miss the turn off, or I'd completely forget where I was going. And I realized that wasn't helpful, because I wasted a hell of a lot of time. So I learned to do this while I was driving, so that I stayed present in the car. I've also been known to have many, many car accidents, possibly as a result of not being present. Yes, Nina's written here, we can learn how to live in the present by observing children. Yeah, they're definitely in the present moment. And it's beautiful.
They get to say exactly what they think at that precise moment in time and get forgiven for it. Whereas as a grown-up, you don't have quite so much scope, do you? Until you get after 80, I think, and then you're allowed to say what you think. But or even
they can express what they think or what their opinion is, and everyone just thinks they're funny. You do it as an adult and everyone gets insulted. Lorraine's also just said, also remembering how we felt things as a child. I think that's wonderful for people who had good childhoods, but for those of us that didn't, it can be challenging to try and remember how we felt things as a child. I certainly don't want to remember what I felt as a child. Okay, has anyone else got anything else to share, or should we get into some meditating? Okay. All right, so just find yourself a comfy spot, get into a comfy spot. And when you're ready, just take a few deep breaths and close your eyes. And just allow yourself to settle into this moment and into this space. And just draw your awareness to your breath. And just keep breathing deeply, allowing yourself to relax. And allow yourself to let go of any stress, any worries, any concerns. Let go of the energy of the day. And allow your mind to settle. And just become aware of your breath and the ease and flow of the in-breath and the out-breath. Recognizing how we can remind ourselves of ease and flow by connecting to the breath. And now in your mind's eye, allow yourself to travel to a space in nature, a space that feels comfortable and is beautiful to you. And standing in this space, you begin to look around and observing that there's a path that leads off to one side. And you allow yourself to begin to follow the path. And you observe your surroundings. You come to the end of the path and you notice that there is a gateway. And when you're ready, you allow yourself to step through this gate. And you stop for a moment and become aware of the difference in the surroundings that you have entered into now. And you notice that there is a group of people who are sitting around a fire. And you move towards them. And these are the ancient ones. And they make space for you to join them. You sit beside the fire. And you listen for the wisdom and the guidance that is being shared with you now. And as you sit in this space, you can feel the support and the love. And just allow yourself to feel any of the hurt or the pain that still sits within your heart. And allow this hurt to pain to surface. So that it may be surrendered and released. Feel the heaviness of these emotions and feelings being lifted. Feel your heart opening and your energy expanding, lightening. Feel the worries and the burdens in your mind and in your heart being lifted from you. And now feeling a sense of peace settling into you, into your body and being. And when you're ready, thanking the wise ones for their support, their guidance, their wisdom. And allow yourself to take a deep breath and to draw your awareness back into this time and into this space. Back into your physical form, moving your fingers and your toes. And opening your eyes when you're ready. One of the things I was shown in this meditation was how very unstable the external world is right now. Our stability is not going to be found there. Our stability is going to be found within us. And that's why these spiritual practices are so essential, because they are what will create the stable foundation in us. So that was quite powerful for me, at least. Lots of feelings coming up as well. I think we forget what an incredibly powerful time we're in. We get sucked into the stuff of the world. Jennifer's written here, must go to my training program, feeling such gratitude, saying a big yes and a huge thank you for the love, safety and synchronicity of this group, which is the highlight of every week for me. Thanks, Jennifer. Sending you lots of love and enjoy the rest of your program. All right. Thank you, everyone. As always, it's so beautiful to be able to connect with you all and to share this time with you. And I hope that you have a good week, and and remember to stay focused on that spiritual practice. I'm talking to myself at the same time. It's lovely to see you. Thank you, all of you. And I'll see you next week. Lots of love. Thanks, Nina.